Lately, my head has been full of doubts, a lot more than usual, and it left me coming back to the same thing I tend to always find myself doing, which is journaling. I left with some discoveries, which you can find at realstories.media or share your own story there. But it left me back to this same lesson. I feel like that's been placed in my life over and over and over again for the past few years, and that's faith. See, when I have these doubts, when my mind is full of contemplation over whether it's the right thing or whether I'm following the right steps, I'm always looking for an empirical solution, something tangible that I can hold my hands onto, that points in the perfect direction, that leads me exactly where I need to go. It gives me the perfect answer to the problems that I'm having. See, as I've said a lot of times, is I'm very good at the future. And what happens is in the present moment, I want the answer to get there. And a lot of times I keep finding myself in these situations where the only answer is to have faith. And what I mean by that is it's not necessarily whether you have faith in God or God's plan, or whether you believe in the universe's plan. Personally, I want to mention that it doesn't matter what label you attach to that. Faith is a belief in something beyond your empirical control, is saying the answer will come. I don't need to overthink it. I don't need to doubt it constantly. And when I come back to these doubts and I'm actively thinking through where they come from, because that's kind of the crux of the problem, the doubts come from a sense of insecurity. And where is insecurity probably going to lead me? It's probably going to lead me down a journey and a trajectory where I'm chasing something that's not really the point. And that's the hard thing, is faith is actually, at least what I'm finding it, is I'm finding that faith is believing in what I believe. And I bring this back to the reason this lesson has been such a theme over my particular life is faith keeps coming up as the solution. I remember in the biggest lesson of that, where I learned what faith actually meant, was in my last relationship. For some reason, I had this knowing, inner knowing, that I was going to be with her. I knew that a year before that relationship even happened. And even though that relationship ended, there was this weird satisfaction in the fact that all of the time I spent doubting that belief, doubting what I felt like God and the universe was telling me, the amount of times I sat there and prayed and called within myself as to whether this was what I was supposed to be doing. Do I need to keep sticking by this person? Do I need to keep having faith in this? And I kept getting reminded to, and it worked out. It was the first time in my life where the answer was not clear. It just wasn't. I didn't know when, I didn't know how, I didn't know. The if was not the question for me. The when and the how was. Well, what should I do in the meantime? All of these doubts and questions came in my head, and I didn't have the answers to them. And I made a lot of mistakes along that process without that knowledge, but it still worked out. And I think that's the point that I keep coming back to as I'm sitting here in this week where my doubts have been so strong that they have literally paralyzed me in my steps. I mean, I've found myself in weak, unhealthy habits. I found myself staying up really late, just in my head about all of these things I want to be true now. I don't want to wait. I think that's such a hard thing for me to get around. And it comes back to the lesson that is faith, that I've already learned and I'm just not putting into practice right now, which is in that scenario where God literally told me, he said, hey, have faith, have faith, have faith, and then proved to me that it would work out. And I think that lesson was supposed to help me now in this moment when the doubts are really the easiest to be the strongest, because I really do not have a lot of evidence empirically in my hands that I can see, hear, feel, that prove to me that what I'm doing is right, that what I believe in is the right thing. And the more I reflect on it, I keep coming back to what happened the first time. It worked out. When I did have faith, when I did lean into what I do believe is true and what I do believe will happen, it did happen. Again, I didn't know when. I didn't know how. I didn't know how it would end up. But it did happen. I had enough belief in it, and I continued to have faith in it, and I didn't give up on that. Which brings me back to, how do I, right now, stop letting the doubts get the best of me? How do I let this practice of faith really enter my life in a meaningful way to help me stay true and to not be so constantly depressed and sad because the doubts are convincing me of a scenario that hasn't happened? It's the other irony of that piece that I just feel like my head gets into. Back then, when I was really, I felt like learning the core of that lesson, that I was being put in a position to be proven that, hey, when you do have faith, it works out, I really had a very strong connection with my faith. And I relate that back to faith within myself, within my soul. And I think naturally my soul and our souls are connected to that outer world that's beyond us. But when that faith is strongest, man, does everything feel so easy, because there's no questions. And I want to be in that frame of mind where I go to sleep peacefully because I'm trusting that I have the right process, that I have the right frame of mind, that I am trying, that I'm not approaching it in a weird way, that I do have the right sources of motivation for my life and what I want out of it. I think we all practice it in different ways. A lot of us pray, a lot of us read, a lot of us just simply talk to God in the shower, talk to the universe in the shower. I think we manifest. I think we spend time in nature, which I spent time in nature recently, out in the Rocky Mountains, and I felt the most connected to that faith, to that outer world, to my own soul in that process. And going through that, feeling so content and peaceful, and then coming back and literally the next week being the worst week of doubts I've had in a while, led me back to that practice. And I think the perfect way to end this episode, to end this conversation, is to actually practice faith. So for me right now, I'm gonna meditate. That's how I tap into my inner soul, into my inner faith, and ask the questions I need to find the reassurance I need to. Meditate with me for 2-3 minutes. Pray for 2 to 3 minutes. Go outside with no technology, nothing, just you and your soul for 2 to 3 minutes. I invite you to practice faith in whatever way you need to, with me right now, no distractions, and then see what happens with the rest of your day.